If you are watching this, it's because you are concerned with content creation and the development of your audience. In a world where digital has become the norm and where visuals have a major place, two communication formats compete: video facing the camera and video podcast. The podcast has had wild success in recent years. More internet users favor podcast over videos. It is a communication format appreciated by the audience and easier to produce than a video. Many of you often ask us what are the main differences between these two communication formats. That's why Lilycast has tested for you the video facing the camera versus the video podcast. In this article, we will share with you our impressions in 3 points. First, the production ease. Second, visual hook for listeners. And then finally, cross-platform compatibility. First of all, the success of podcasts can be explained by its practical side. The production of a video in front of your camera is time-consuming. You spend actually a lot of your time taking care of the filming setting, for instance, the lighting, scenery, look, and the editing. The cost of realizing a video must also be taken into account. Indeed, the acquisition of the right material could considerably increase the budget of the production. To make your video, you will need a microphone, a camera, the lights, the computer, and the necessary software for video editing. From that perspective, an animated podcast requires less time and less money than producing a video. To create your animated podcast, all you need is a computer or smartphone and a microphone in the best case. Nothing's easier. With Lilycast, you will not need to worry about editing software since everything is accessible from the same application. Lilycast allows you to prepare your audio with the text editor, record and modify your audio, add the visual, host and broadcast your future podcast. Be careful, because opting for a video format will not have the same impact on everyone. Actually, a facecam video does not work as well for a complete stranger as it works for a person with a little notoriety. So to make your voice heard, opt for the video podcast, which will focus on your messages. Whether it's a video or an animated podcast, visuals are very important. Thanks to the addition of the visuals such as photos, videos, GIFs, or text, the podcast now also has its visual appeal. Video and animated podcasts are on equal footing. Visuals are essential since they help capture the attention of listeners. As opposed to a video, the animated podcast targets and supports important ideas. It is therefore what is best for the understanding of your listeners. To illustrate these remarks, we did a test with a national radio. The principle of the study was simple. Over a period of 6 months, publications alternating the video format and video podcast were posted on the radio social networks. The result speaks for itself, because the best audiences were on the publication created from the Lilycast application, so from animated podcasts. If you're still not convinced, maybe the adaptable format of the video podcast will change your mind. Today, information and its consumption are divided. Internet users tend to use social networks, YouTube and Spotify as sources of information. Today, information and its consumption are divided. Internet users tend to use social networks, YouTube, or Spotify as sources of information. This is where the podcast makes sense, because unlike video, the format of a podcast is flexible. In fact, the production of a podcast can be adapted to a website, as well as to YouTube or audio platforms and social networks. It is therefore a point that should not be overlooked, since it will allow you to multiply your chances of covering the various means of communication and reaching a wider audience. Keep in mind that podcasts can be read, watched, and listened to. So play with the different options available to you and conquer the web by modulating the format of your video podcasts. To conclude, the video podcast is a great means of communication. Its production is cheaper and faster than a facecam video, and the lack of visuals is no longer a negative point for the podcast. Being able to embellish your podcast with text and visuals makes the video podcast more attractive and pleasant to follow for your audience. Finally, the format of a podcast is variable. You can do whatever you want with it and therefore make it adaptable to all media platforms.